If your feet feel like they're on fire, buzzing with electricity, or completely numb when you walk, you are not imagining it, and you are not alone. Roughly 25% of adults over 70 are dealing with exactly this, and the vast majority of them have never been told what you are about to learn. Most people assume the answer is medication, and while some medications help manage symptoms, there is now hard scientific evidence that the right physical movements can actually stimulate nerve fiber regrowth, not just relieve discomfort, but physically rebuild the damaged nerve endings themselves. Researchers confirmed this by taking skin biopsies from patients before and after a structured exercise program and literally observed new nerve fibers growing back under a microscope. That is not a metaphor or a feel-good claim. That is measurable, visible, biological change. Today, DoctorLeana is going to walk you through 6 exercises you can do entirely at home, using nothing but a chair in about 15 minutes a day. But first, it helps to understand what is actually happening inside your body. Your peripheral nerves are long, delicate communication lines that travel from your spinal cord all the way down through your legs and into your toes. They send your brain two-way information: where your body is in space, what temperature you are touching, whether something is painful. When those pathways are damaged, the signals get distorted or lost entirely. Your brain receives static instead of clear information, and that static is what you experience as burning, tingling, stabbing sensations, or a terrifying absence of feeling. Diabetes is responsible for roughly 40% of all neuropathy cases because chronically elevated blood sugar causes a process called glycation. Essentially, sugar molecules stick to nerve proteins and degrade them over time. But diabetes is far from the only culprit. Alcohol is a direct neurotoxin that also blocks the absorption of vitamin B1. Chemotherapy, autoimmune conditions, obesity, and certain medications, including metformin and omeprazole, can deplete vitamin B12 to levels that starve your nerves of what they need to function. In about 30% of cases, a definitive cause is never found at all. On the supplement side, DoctorLeana wants to briefly mention a few things backed by solid evidence. Alpha-lipoic acid at 600 milligrams per day has been evaluated in multiple large clinical trials and demonstrated a 30 to 50% reduction in pain and tingling for many patients. Vitamin B12 deficiency is extremely common in people on certain medications and is correctable, so getting your levels tested is genuinely worthwhile. One important warning: vitamin B6, taken above 50 milligrams daily, actually causes nerve damage rather than preventing it, so please check the back of any supplements you are currently using. All supporting research is linked below. Now, here is the part DoctorLeana really wants you to understand before diving into the exercises. Consistency and gentleness are the two non-negotiable rules. Nerves do not respond well to sudden, intense demands. They respond to steady, repeated, manageable stimulation over time. With that in mind, start every number you see here at half the stated amount and build up gradually over weeks, not days. The first and most foundational piece is cardiovascular movement, because circulation is what delivers oxygen to your nerve tissue, and oxygen is the raw material of healing. The goal over time is 150 minutes of moderate cardio per week: walking, cycling, swimming, whatever feels accessible and safe for your body. If balance or weather is a concern, a seated march works beautifully. Sit tall on a sturdy chair without leaning into the backrest, and lift alternating knees in a rhythmic marching motion while swinging the opposite arm forward with each step. Your breathing should pick up slightly, but you should still be able to hold a conversation. Begin with 3 minutes and add 1 minute every few days until you can sustain 10 to 15 minutes, twice daily. This single habit gives you 20 to 30 minutes of daily cardio with virtually no fall risk. The second area to address is balance, because one of the most dangerous consequences of neuropathy is the loss of proprioception, your body's internal GPS that tells you where your feet are relative to the ground. When those signals are weakened, your brain cannot make the micro-corrections needed to keep you upright, and falls become far more likely. A fracture from a fall can trigger a cascade of health problems, particularly for people over 60, so protecting your balance is genuinely urgent. Stand behind a sturdy chair with both hands resting on the back. Slowly shift your weight onto one foot and lift the other just 1 inch off the floor. Hold for as long as you can. Even 5 seconds is a meaningful starting point, working up to 30 seconds per leg, 3 rounds on each side. As this becomes easier, try holding with just one hand, then no hands, and eventually with your eyes closed. Eyes closed balance work forces your nervous system to rely entirely on the nerve pathways in your feet and ankles, creating demand that encourages those pathways to strengthen. Think of it as resistance training for your sensory nerves. The third balance exercise is a heel-to-toe weight shift. Stand with feet shoulder-width apart, one hand on the chair, and slowly rock your weight back onto your heels so your toes lift, hold briefly, then roll forward onto your toes so your heels lift, and hold again. 15 repetitions, 2 sets, performed slowly and deliberately. Each shift sends a signal from the sensory receptors in your soles up through your nervous system, reinforcing the connection between your feet and your brain. This also simultaneously strengthens your calf muscles, which function as a circulatory pump, pushing blood upward through your veins when they contract and drawing fresh, oxygenated blood down to your feet when they release. The next group of 3 exercises focuses on the feet themselves, because in neuropathy, the small intrinsic muscles of the foot tend to weaken and atrophy as the motor nerves lose their ability to communicate with them. Calf raises are the first. Standing behind a chair, slowly rise onto the balls of your feet. Hold for a 2 count at the top, then slowly lower back down for a 2 count, keeping the movement controlled rather than letting your heels drop. 12 repetitions, 2 sets, with 30 seconds of rest between sets. When this feels comfortable, challenge yourself by attempting it on one leg at a time. The second foot exercise requires nothing more than a thin towel laid flat on the floor. Sit in your chair, place your bare foot on the near edge of the towel, and use only your toes to scrunch and pull the fabric toward you, spreading, gripping, and pulling repeatedly for 10 repetitions per foot, 2 sets. This will feel awkward and unresponsive at first, which is completely expected. That difficulty is evidence that the nerve muscle pathways are being activated after long periods of low use, and the improvement you will feel over the following weeks is your brain relearning how to control those muscles through whatever functional nerve fibers remain. For a more advanced version, place small objects like marbles, coins, or pencils on the floor and practice picking them up and moving them with your toes. The 6th and final exercise is ankle mobilization and the alphabet. Seated with one foot lifted slightly off the floor, rotate your ankle in full circles 10 times in each direction. Then use your big toe as a pen and trace every letter of the alphabet in the air as slowly and distinctly as possible. Each letter traces a different movement path, activating different muscle groups and nerve endings in your lower leg and foot from angles that standard exercises rarely reach. Putting this all together into a daily routine looks like this: 5 to 10 minutes of seated marching to warm up and get circulation moving, followed by 3 to 4 minutes of the single leg stand and heel-to-toe rocks for balance, followed by 4 to 5 minutes of calf raises, towel scrunches, and ankle work for the feet themselves. 15 minutes total, every single day. Whenever conditions allow, add a 20 to 30 minute walk at an easy pace for additional benefit. 3 principles will determine whether this works for you. First, always start at half. If the exercise calls for 12 repetitions, begin with 6. If it calls for 30 seconds, start with 10. Nerves respond to gradual loading, not sudden intensity. Second, prioritize frequency over duration. 15 minutes daily will produce better results than an hour once a week because nerve regeneration is a slow, continuous process that requires repeated stimulation to sustain momentum. Third, check your feet carefully after every session. When sensation is reduced, blisters, pressure points, and small injuries can develop without you feeling them. So 1 minute of visual inspection after each session is a simple but important safety habit. Alongside these exercises, Dr. Leana recommends getting your B12 levels and blood sugar checked if you have not recently, discussing alpha lipoic acid with your doctor, eating more fatty fish and leafy greens, and reducing sugar and processed fats, all of which directly affect nerve health. Neuropathy is not something you simply have to accept and endure. The research is clear. Nerves can regrow, circulation can improve, balance can be rebuilt, and sensation can return, but only if you consistently give your body what it needs to do the work. You now have the plan. Please consult your doctor before beginning, especially if you have open foot wounds, severe loss of sensation, or significant balance impairment. And all scientific sources supporting everything shared here are linked in the description below.